MMA UK Late Show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Now, tonight's guest, we have a returning guest, Mr. Tom Heffernan of the Daily Record. Thank you for coming on, Tom.
No worries.
And we also have MMA Junkie's John Morgan. So, good afternoon, John.
Hey, it's not such a late show for me here back in Vegas. It's all right.
No, and I see you've got the fan on in the background, so I'm pretty sure your weather's a bit different to how ours has been today.
It's a little bit toasty out here. I don't think you guys are quite on the heat wave that we're having.
No, we were more a storm today, wasn't it?
We had Storm Hector today, believe it or not. Storm Hector.
Wow.
Trampolines flying across roads. Been great.
Yeah. Oh well, Scotland, that's to be expected. So obviously we've got quite a lot of stuff to talk about. So at the weekend we had UFC 225. First of all, when I saw the card initially, I thought this is definitely the most stacked card of the year. The prelims alone looked like they could have headlined the main event. So John, obviously you were at the event in Chicago. What was your overall thoughts on the card when it was first announced versus did it live up to the expectation, in your opinion?
Yeah, I was the same way as you, man. You look at that thing top to bottom, you're like, wow. I mean, when you got, Benavidez and Pettis fighting on the, fight past prelims, and you've got, ranked fighters up and down on every level of the card, it's definitely hyped about how stacked it was. And I'll tell you what, to me, I thought it lived up to the expectations. I found it to be an incredibly entertaining card from top to bottom. I mean, yes, there was the Mike Jackson, CM Punk fiasco but that was just part of it. That wasn't what you were hanging your hat on for this card. It was just kind of part of the overall circus. And it was funny. I remember at the post-fight press conference before things got started, I was just kind of looking at the card, kind of preparing some questions and stuff. And I didn't even realize that every fight on the main card was a decision. Like, it just didn't click in my head as we were watching, because normally when that happens, you go, oh, man, this thing really kind of dragged on. And even though we had 5 decisions on the main card, I walked away thinking, man, that was a fun night of fight. So to me, a home run. And I got to say, the people in Chicago, they showed up early, 18,000 people. Most of them were in their seat from the very beginning, made for a great atmosphere all night long. And the local fighters didn't do too well, so they didn't get to cheer, as much as they might have liked to, but it was a fun night. Yeah,
I would have to agree with that as well. And one thing, when I was looking at the card, normally I don't stay up. And I'm sure Tom's the same as me, because it's not easy in the UK to stay up to 6 in the morning, especially with kids and stuff like that. But this is when I thought, you know what, I'm going to sit up for this. And normally you're waiting for the main card to start. This one, I mean, right from the off, the fights were, like I say, they were outstanding. Some of the names that were on the prelims, fight pass prelims. Yeah, it was the UFC really put a good card together. Tom, just as well for you, obviously you're in a position like myself where you need to really stay up. I know it's not easy getting older as well, but what did you think of the card when it was first announced?
It's similar to John. I had a wee look at the fights on the UFC website a while back, and I thought, bloody hell, what an event that is. That's like 2 pay-per-views in the one. Really exciting card. And just when you mentioned the fight pass prelims, I mean, that's probably a fight night card alone, with Rashad and Pettis, Benavidez, Guida. I mean, bloody hell, talk about getting your money's worth. But fantastic card. And I noticed that as well. John said about I think all in all there was about 7 or 8 decisions across the whole card, but it didn't detract from it at all. It was entertaining throughout.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things I wanted to chat to you about, obviously, and get your thoughts on this. Rashad Evans is back at obviously light heavyweight, fighting Anthony Smith, who's obviously fought at 185. It was massive for that weight class. 53-second KO. I think it was a knee that got it all going. What do you think about this? Obviously, Rashad continuing on. It's hard to say when a fighter should retire, but for me, watching Rashad from the start and the Ultimate Fighter, I find it difficult to watch him now, because he's not just losing fights, but I mean, he's losing fights, and you're looking at think that's potential brain damage there. What did you think about that fight, John, and sort of where Rashad goes from here?
I thought that was kind of a measuring stick kind of a moment. You know what I mean? No offense to Anthony Smith. I love Anthony Smith. He's like you said, he's a big dude. Even at 205, he's a big dude, much less at 185. You know, big, strong guy, you know, gritty, a lot of will. But I don't know if he's ever going to be a UFC champion, you know. And for Rashad to go in there and get handled the way he did, you know, it's sad because, you know, I talked to Rashad earlier in the week and he was in great spirits and, you know, he was happy about the fight, you know, being in Chicago. He was, you know, talking about the kind of happy mental place he was in. And so, you know, there were a lot of positives around Rashad Evans. But you're right. I mean, to me, yes, it's not our place to tell somebody to walk away. I mean, they've got families to take care of. They have financial situations. I mean, if they can get cleared by a doctor, then yes, they can fight. But the thing about watching Rashad in recent years is it's not even just like knockouts. It just seems like he's struggling to pull the trigger. You know what I mean? There's just, for whatever reason, there's this hesitation. He just doesn't have the fight in him, so to speak. And, you know, didn't really get to show much here. But, yeah, I hate to say it, but I think it might have been the last we see of Rashad Evans. You know, Dana mentioned it in the post-fight press conference that, you know, it might be it for Rashad based on their conversation. It sounds like Rashad's a little undecided. But, you know, I don't think it would be the worst move for him. You know, I think he could probably be a commentator, a broadcaster. You know, I think the UFC would probably hook him up with that. He's a Hall of Famer at some, you know, at some point. And I think there's other options on the table that might be a better thing for him moving forward. Yeah,
that's one thing I would say. Watching Rashad on the Fox test, he is really good, and I think he's definitely got a career to move into there. And obviously, you don't want to see somebody going too long in their career. Recently, David Hayes just retired, and there was something he said. Physically, he felt great getting into fights, but his reactions weren't what they once were, and he was getting caught with shots he might not have got caught with before. So it's just, unfortunately, Father Time eventually does catch up with you. I don't think you can avoid that. Tom, I'll just bring you in there when obviously.
I mean, I think I loved Rashad. I remember him in The Ultimate Fighter, and he's great, and he's a character, and he's got a bit of banter about him and things like that. But he's lost five fights in a row, and that knockout there against Smith was just. I think if that's not a signal to give it up, I think actually the UFC should take the decision out of his own hands. You know, there's guys cut for less than that. So if he's lost 5 in a row, he's lost 7 out of his last 9. I think he's ran his course in the UFC, and it is time to move on to whether he wants to be in the studio with Fox or anything else, because he has got a lot to offer the sport. But yeah, definitely time. His career's over in the UFC, hopefully.
Yeah, it's
his own health. I mean that for his own health.
Yeah, there's kind of another thing that sticks out as well when you see a fighter later in their career changing weight divisions, not having the success they're looking for, then going back to weight divisions. It's like they're trying to find that thing that's missing. So as much as I've loved following Rashad's career, I kind of agree. I think it's time maybe done in the octagon.
Here's what's weird is that, you know, it's funny because, I mean, he definitely has star power. He definitely has name recognition. And, you know, it's funny. You look at, say, like Vitor Belfort, you know, when Vitor was walking away recently, he started throwing out this, you know, this Legends division. And it sounds like a horrible idea, I'll be honest with you. But, I mean, it's kind of what Bellator is doing, right? I mean, and now you've got Golden Boy, you know, talking about the potential of Chuck and Tito fighting again, which sounds bizarre, but, I mean, people would tune in, right? I mean, these are recognizable names. People that don't know anything about MMA know these names. So it is weird. I mean, you know, you said it, like his UFC days should be done, and there's no question about it. And then I think it's, you know, and then it's up to him, I guess. You know, if he wants to try to go compete on the regional scene or for Bellator or wherever it may be. I mean, I guess that's still there as a way to make money. But, you know, you would hope that he didn't necessarily have to go that route. But people would still watch him. That's the crazy thing about this sport. You know, I mean, you don't necessarily have to be competing for world championships. Once you've established that name, people will tune in for you.
I would completely agree with that, just in the sense that if you look at, let's say, like Bellator and stuff like that, their matchmaking, they're sort of more prone to guys with big names. They won't put them in that young contender fight, whereas the UFC, the matchmaking's unforgiving. There is no fights like that in the UFC. If you're a guy with a name, you don't get easy fights, and unfortunately, I think that's why the UFC, there is a place, I'm sure, somewhere else for Rashad Evans, but whether he would want to fight elsewhere or in, like you say, the league Vitor Belfort was suggesting. But I think the UFC is a very, very unforgiving place. And if you're...
That actually sounds like, James, you'll know what I mean. Over here, football we call it, and we'll stick with football. You know what sport I mean. We have a over 35s league, so 35 and over, which is basically Bellator get, so maybe that's the way forward. the over 35s.
Yeah, thankfully, I suppose I kind of qualify for that. I'm 35. I always feel young when I'm on a broadcast with you, Tom.
John, stick up for me here.
Yeah, well, I'm 40, so I'm right there.
I'm exactly the same age as you.
Not you liar. More of your hair just fell out there when you lied. So we'll sticking with the prelims. I want to move to somebody that really impressed me. It was the Curtis Blades versus Alistair Overeem fight. I thought this was a horrendous matchup for Overeem from the start, and I'm not often right, but in this one I was correct. I thought Curtis Blades looked fantastic. What did you think of the fight overall, John, and Curtis Blades, how much he's announced himself in the heavyweight division?
Man, I was really impressed by Curtis Blades. Curtis is one of those guys you could see early on there was potential in him, but he was still very, very raw. And I feel like he's making those developments now. He's making those advancements that you wanted to see in his career. It was funny because, the first round, both guys kind of giving each other some respect, and they were studying each other. The crowd started booing because they had this run of like crazy fights, and then these two guys are kind of standing there. But of course, they were just both showing a lot of respect for each other because, in that division, one shot changes everything. And then, Curtis went to his wrestling, was able to get a takedown. That looked good. And then, of course, in the third round, getting that finish. I mean, that was just a brutal finish. They had to rush Alistair by press row to get him back to the back to get him sutured up because he was cut up so bad. I mean, blood was literally just like shooting out of his head. So pretty brutal finish there. But I like Curtis Blades, man. I really do. I like the attitude. I think, again, you see this potential in people, but then, sometimes they make those jumps and sometimes they don't. I feel like he's been making those little incremental jumps every time out there. And this was kind of the coming out party, so to speak. I think he really announced himself as a legitimate contender. He says, he wants the winner of the title fight coming up. I don't know if that's necessarily in line for him, but he's definitely in line for another big. I mean, he's right there on the cusp. There's no question about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Curtis Blades is, even in his losses, it was, I'm just running back, my memory's not the best, but he fought Francis Ngannou. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously we know how hard Francis hits, and Curtis Blades showed he's got a chin in that fight. And the other thing as well with Overeem, Overeem's took some really, really bad KOs, not just in the UFC, but earlier in his career. Obviously, the one that sticks out is the Ngannou KO, and then the loss, obviously, now to Curtis Blades, and like you said, in vicious fashion. So it was a fantastic fight for Curtis Blades. For Overeem, it kind of leaves those questions now. Where does he go from here? What do you think for Overeem, Tom? Where do you think this leaves him in the heavyweight division?
I think Overeem has looked horrible in his last few fights. He's slow. He's tentative. I think he, like Rashad, has run his course, and I think it's. I think he's sitting too high up the rankings. I think he's past his prime. You can't keep taking that type of punishment, And I was looking at the stats earlier on, and I see that Overeem, the fantastic striker that has been throughout his career, managed only 7 significant strikes in that fight compared to Curtis, who was he managed about 39 or something like that. So, and he's supposed to be the wrestler, and even just Overeem's demeanour, he's sitting low, he's not letting go, he's trying to point score maybe. I don't know. I just think he's not looked good. He's looked cumbersome. I think he's past his prime, way past his prime, and I think I don't know how much of a career he's got left. To be honest, I haven't been impressed watching him in a long time, and that's quite a shame.
Yeah, I think Overeem is definitely over years. I won't go into details why, but he's definitely changed up his style. Obviously, when he first came into the UFC, he really pushed forward, but then obviously it was a different Overeem then. It was Ubereem then.
You're talking about USADA, just say it.
Yeah, listen, I was more referring to the horse meat. But he's tried to move it. He's tried to be more elusive, and obviously in the Ngannou fight, he changed away from that, from where he was having success, went forward, and that knockout. I mean, that's got to change a fighter, that knockout alone. That was one of the most vicious knockouts I've seen. It was like a computer game when you used to play fight games when you were younger.
There was a moment I thought, he's killed him. You know, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's like it takes you, literally, if he had shoes on, he would have been knocked out of them. But I kind of agree with you there, Tom. I don't see where Overeem goes for here. The only thing I could see him potentially becoming is a gatekeeper being used for his name, which is, I'm assuming, what Alistair certainly wouldn't want. I mean, do you see any way forward for him in the heavyweight division, John?
You know, not necessarily as a legitimate title contender, as you guys said. I mean, the change in style, the tentativeness. I mean, I can appreciate trying to be a little bit more strategic than to just go out. But, you know, there was something about him being a little bit intimidating, you know, and now he doesn't have that factor anymore. And so, you know, seeing a tentative, strategic Overeem out there, I don't think is necessarily the best. You know, he definitely still has name recognition. I mean, you look at, you know, like the UFC's going to Russia for the first time. You know, maybe throwing him on that card would make some sense. You know, kind of that, you know, going into new markets, developing markets where these people have never had a chance to see, you know, Alistair Overeem. I mean, even Scotland, for instance. I mean, if they came back with a fight night and he was a main event or a co-main event, you know, I'm sure fans would be thrilled to see, like, man, here's a superstar of the sports that we've been watching forever. So I think that's kind of where he's at. It's in a ways, I kind of almost look at it kind of like, look how Cowboy Cerrone is right now. And Cowboy, I think, has had more success, you know, but he's had up and down moments. I don't know if Cowboy's ever going to be, you know, a champion at this point. But, you know, when you can take him to markets like Singapore, when you can see this guy, oh, man, there's the guy we've seen on TV forever. I think that's important because sometimes the UFC, you know, you try to use those local ticket sellers. But as you guys know, I'm sure when the UFC comes to town, you don't necessarily just want to see the regional guys that you've already been seeing anyway, right? You know, so you want to see those stars that you see on TV. So that's what I think is probably out there for Overeem is, you know, find some matchups here and there. Let him kind of build your brand. Let him be that star that he is. But I just don't see him contending for a title. You know, he told me before this fight, he was like, look, if I win this fight, you know, then maybe one more, and I feel like I'm right back in there. Yeah, I don't know, man. And then you got guys like Tai Tuivasa, and you know, I mean, the heavyweight division is growing. You know what I mean? It's in, you know, Greg Hardy made his debut the other day, maybe more NFL type athlete. I mean, there's just this new generation of heavyweights, and I don't think Overeem has a path to the title anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think the heavyweight division sort of got a bit stale there. We're losing Kane and stuff like that, and then obviously Brock coming in and coming out. And when you see these young guys coming through, Curtis Blades to Avasa, who I actually think would be a good matchup. Next, well, actually, I'll get your thoughts on that now while we're talking about it. Tuivasa obviously got the decision against Arlovsky. Do you think that's a potential matchup? Two of them coming off wins in the same card. What do you think of that, John?
You know, I like the fight, but I think, you know, you got to be careful. When you got two contenders like that, maybe kind of keep them away from each other a little bit. You know, I think, you know, I remember in Croatia, Ngannou and Derek Lewis were both on the same card, and they picked up a win in Zagreb, and it was pretty early in both their careers. And everybody's like, let's put those two guys against each other. And it was like, not yet. You know, not yet. You got guys that are building up. So, you know, I think you don't want to sacrifice one contender in favor of the other. So I think I'd probably steer clear of it for now. But those two are destined to meet at some point, no question about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously move on to the main card. It was kind of the hot topic beforehand. I think we all know where I'm going with this. One Mr. Phil Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk, was fighting Mike Jackson. I'll come to you first with this, Tom. First of all, before the fight happened, what was your thoughts on it? Punk getting a second chance, Mike Jackson obviously coming back in. Both guys had lost pretty quickly and pretty handedly to Mickey Gall. What was your thoughts on the actual fight, the fact it was on the main event?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind CM Punk getting a second bite at the cherry. It's been, 2 years since he last fought, and that was over pretty quick, so we didn't really get much of a chance to see what he was made of. I expected a lot more out of him with another 2 years under his belt under such expert tutelage, and I think he actually looked horrible. He was like an amateur, a poor amateur in there, and he's fighting against a guy who is, quite frankly, an average amateur as well, and he made him look, well, we know what happened there. You know, he toyed with him for a bit. Dana wasn't happy. It was just a horrible fight. I felt sorry for CM Punk. I think if we could have got him out there, we probably should have found a way to get him out there because it was just an embarrassment for the guy. I can see why the UFC put it on the on the main card. They're obviously trying to sell. It's his home city, his hometown. He's trying to sell some pay-per-views in the back of it. Dana regretted it afterwards, but I think it was an experiment.
Yeah,
it was an experiment after Brock, and it failed. Sometimes these things happen. I can understand why they did it. I don't think we'll ever see that happen again in the UFC.
Yeah, I totally get it from a promoter's point of view why it happened. Obviously, we've seen it with Bama, then obviously Bellator doing it with Alan Chalmers, obviously reality TV star over here. But when I was watching the fight, I was thinking about these two guys. Both had obviously one fight. We were at a show a couple of weeks ago, regional show it was, John. There was a young gentleman that fought at 171 there. He was making his second amateur fight. His name is Ricky Kanopoulos. He trains out of SBG Inverness. And I just thought, watching Ricky versus watching these two guys in the UFC, and they were worlds apart. And I get CM Punk's been training for, 4 years now, but honestly, it's like 4 years training. It really didn't look like it was. I mean, I've seen guys develop better over 6 months than what I've seen there, so I don't think it was great for the UFC ultimately, but I understand why they did it. What did you think of the performance of both guys, John?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't follow professional wrestling, so I didn't know anything about CM Punk. I've never seen him wrestle in my life. When they signed him, I'd heard the name, but I didn't know anything about him. But in the time since, the interviews I've had, the times I've talked to him, he's the nicest guy, man. He really is just a humble, genuine dude, and I respect him for getting in there, And I heard a lot of people say, a lot of people said, and you heard people in the MMA community saying, they respect him, they respect his toughness, they respect his bravery. And I heard a lot of people say, well, anybody would get in there for the amount of money. It's not just the fact that he got in there. It's the fact that there were a lot of chances he had to quit to get out of that fight. And we've all seen it, that moment where a guy just turtles up, gives his neck up, waits for the fight. He could have done that multiple times. So I respect his durability. I respect his toughness. That could not have been a fun night for him in front of his home crowd to get handled the way he did. So I respect him. But yeah, the experiment is over. The improvements weren't there. The striking wasn't there. The wrestling wasn't. I mean, there was just nothing you could look to other than his heart and his durability to say, man, there was some real skill and technique there. So yeah. The experiment to me is definitely over. Mike Jackson took a lot of criticism. I like Mike. He's a good dude as well. I've worked alongside him as a journalist, and I've interviewed him to cover his fights, which is kind of bizarre to say. He's a good dude, but I echo Dana White's criticism here. Now, not quite to the level that Dana is. Obviously, he's a little bit more strong opinionated about some things. But as I was watching the fight, I got a little bit frustrated as well. And it wasn't the showboating. Again, a lot of people said, oh, he was showboating. No, I mean, people showboat. I get it. Michael Venom Page, a guy and there's people that showboat, right? But he showed to me no interest whatsoever in finishing the fight. He looked almost bored out there. I mean, Mike Jackson looked like he was bored out there. It looked like he was more interested in kind of showing up CM Punk. They're like, look, you can't even do anything to me, versus if you've got an outmatched opponent, go in there and finish the fight, man. Close the deal, seal it. You know what I mean? And so I think, to be honest with you, I think Mike, I know he's been frustrated at some of the criticism he's got, but I think the criticism was warranted, man. To me, he looked like he was disinterested in even trying to finish the fight, and that bugged me. That bugged me.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing Mike Jackson could have done was go in there rather than try to show off or hold back or maybe keep the fight going. I'm not quite sure what was going through his head. He should have went in there, and if he's far superior to CM Punk, finish the fight. That's what's going to get him another opportunity in the UFC. And he made a bad judgment call, and that bad judgment call has potentially cost him ever fighting in the UFC again. If Dana sometimes changes his mind, but Paul Daly would say he doesn't. So, you know what I mean? It's potentially a bad mistake. Sorry, Tom, you're going to say something there when I...
No, I was just going to say, I'm sure, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the commentators, might have been Jimmy, said that his performance was so weird that he wasn't going to have countless opportunities to finish that fight. And he actually said something along the lines of, don't know the quote exactly, but it was like, has he been paid to see this through to the third round?
Yeah.
You know, it was something along those lines. And it did look like that at times. You know, it was awful.
I think as well, obviously, as John was saying there, Mike Jackson's coming from, he's got a journalist background as well. So I don't know if he's maybe trying to give the fans something in there and he's just made the totally wrong call. That's kind of what it seemed like to me, that he thought the way he went about the fight would translate better to fans. And obviously,
if you're going to showboat, you can't showboat against a guy who's a very poor amateur. Well, you're not proving anything there. If you can showboat like Conor does against the best guys in the world, then that's a bit different. You know what I mean? If you can showboat against Jose Aldo or somebody else, you know, a natural born killer, and still win the fight and finish it, that's a different thing altogether.
Tuesday night, it's funny because this past Tuesday night, the first week of Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series Season 2, the first fight of the night, there was a kid named Kevin Holland. He picked up a win over Will Santiago. It's on Fight Pass, so if anybody wants to watch it, they can watch it. It was almost exactly like Mike Jackson. The guy came out, and you could tell this Kevin Holland, he's got skills. You could see, man, he had some striking, he had some abilities, but he was talking the whole time and showboating. He was talking to his opponent. He was talking to the corner. He was talking to Dana. I mean, and he was, you know, gesturing, and he was showboating. But then it went to a decision. You know what I mean? And you could do that. I get it. Like you said, man, I think a great point. Mike, being a journalist, probably wanted to put on a show, probably wanted to give something for people to remember. But at the end of the day, you got to finish fights, man. You got to finish fights if you're going to do something like that.
Yeah, at this point, everybody knows who the UFC is. Fighters know, most fighters, that is where they all want to get to. And the one thing the UFC wants is for you to finish. They don't care about showboating. If you can finish a fight, go in there and finish the fight. That is what's going to propel you. Obviously, all the other stuff, the shit talking, all that's all fantastic, but it all boils down to getting in there, winning impressively, and hopefully guys out there that are trying to get to the UFC level will look at that and think, right, when I get to the UFC, if I can't finish a fight, I better do my hardest to finish the fight. So yeah, it was an interesting thing lead up. It had a lot of people talking. It had the MMA community split. Now it's over, and obviously we'll get to this later, but the only other thing, we might see Brock back, but that's a completely different ball game to obviously CM Punk. I don't think it's comparable. The next fight I wanted to chat about was Holly Holm, Megan Anderson. Megan Anderson was making her debut in the UFC. She's a big girl fighting Holly Holm. And I was extremely impressed in that fight, but I was extremely impressed with Holly Holm. Thought we saw some new wrinkles to her game. She looked better than I've ever seen her. What did you think about Holly in that performance, John?
I thought it was great. You know, she got rocked early on. I mean, Megan, as you said, is big. I'd seen her fight on TV before. You know, I'd never actually seen her fight in person. So, you know, meeting her in fight week and just seeing how tall she is, how big she is, how muscular she is, it's like, wow, you know, she is the real deal. And she rocked Holly early. And I thought, uh-oh, here we go. And then Holly turned to her wrestling. I thought it was brilliant, man. I thought she made some great adjustments on the fly, and was able to prove that she's a well-rounded fighter, you know, not just a boxer in mixed martial arts. So super impressed by Holly Holm. You know, now it looks like maybe her and Amanda Nunes might be the fight to make. I'm okay with that. The weird thing about it is, and then it's the part that I never understood about this booking, is now I don't know what to do with Megan Anderson now, because, you know, Megan was the person that was supposed to challenge Cyborg. And, of course, Cyborg is Cyborg, man. It's kind of like picking against Demetrius Johnson or picking against John Jones. I mean, I don't know how you pick against Cyborg, but you're looking for those challenges. And Megan at least has the physical stature to do it, but I don't think you can give her a title fight off of a loss now. So it was kind of a weird matchmaking thing for me, because now I don't know what you do with Megan and what that means for Cyborg. But for Holly, super impressive. And, you know, she's had some as many high moments as she's had in her career. She's had some low moments too, some mistakes that have cost her. And here, you know, I thought she showed some durability and some ability to change on the fly. As you said, some new wrinkles to her game we hadn't seen before, and I was very impressed.
Was it potentially this, they were using sort of Holly as a measuring stick for Megan? Because I know myself, I thought the fight they would make would be Megan and Cyborg, and after seeing the Holly fight, I was like, ooh, that could be very, very tough for Megan Anderson. She's not ready for that yet, in my opinion. It's so yeah. After seeing that, it's kind of, I think Megan Anderson has got some work to do. A lot of work to do if she's linked. She's got the frame, she's got the size, but I just don't think she's got the experience level and quite the ability just yet to be getting in there with Cyborg, which is a very dangerous and different option to Holly Holm. What did you think yourself of the fight, Tom?
I was really looking forward to this one, actually, because we've seen this build-up of Megan Anderson for quite a while. You've already touched on that she was due to fight Cyborg at one point. Turned out it was a blessing in disguise that didn't happen, because I think she would have got ragdolled. Again, Holly Holm, it's a tough debut, very tough debut for anybody. And I think James, you hit the nail on the head. It was a good barometer for her. She now has a better understanding of where she fits in the UFC, what she's going to have to go away and work on, the adjustments she's going to have to make. But like John said, she caught her early doors, and I thought, well, this is what we were looking for. But I mean, the size difference, she just seems to have big, huge legs, big, powerful legs. If she can get those things working, she could cause some serious damage. A part of me, as much as I like Holly Holm, and there was a wee part of me wanted Megan to win because her father's Scottish, you know. So there was that link there. Although our dad does support the wrong team in Scotland, but
stop the show. Glasgow Rangers fan.
John's one. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's what we want.
I think you're right number tier though, James. I've seen John's post.
Hey. I'm actually a fan of John as well, so I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. Sorry, John,
sorry, I've lost the thread now. What I was saying.
You were saying you were sort of wanted Megan to do well, obviously, because you were clinging on to that bit of Scottish.
I was, you know, she started strong, and then I think she was sort of mentally broken slightly. I think she knew she was out of depth, and she plodded on, and she made it to the end. But there was no question who was the winner in that fight. But I'd like to see her in again soon. But I don't know who against. But she's a long way away from Cyborg.
Is this fight then potentially a blessing in disguise for Megan Anderson? Because it's really let her know where she's at. Obviously, she's been beating girls pretty handedly outside the UFC, but we see this very often. Winning fights outside the UFC, guys come in with massive win streaks. When you get in the UFC, it's just a different ballgame. So I think this could potentially be a blessing in disguise for Megan, rather than getting through straight in there with Cyborg.
If you look at it, Holly Holmes is the boxer. She's a kickboxer, the world champion, and she used wrestling.
Yeah,
you know, she totally dominated in the wrestling, took her down 4 times, and that's how she won the fight. So that's not her forte either. Her forte is striking. So where does that leave Megan? How bad is her wrestling? Or how good is it? How bad is her striking? How good is it? We don't know.
I would say on top of that, the one thing about Holly, and it's something we've seen in the Cyborg fight, Holly is a very, very strong girl. We've seen how effective she was with Cyborg in the clinch. It was one of the things that she really done well. She lost the fight, don't get me wrong, but she looked really strong in the clinch. So yeah, it could have been that it's just caught Megan Anderson off guard with that, because it certainly caught me off guard. I don't know what you thought about that, John.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't what I was expecting to see. So I think it certainly was a surprise for Megan. And you know, it's just tough because, you know, yeah, you're right. Is it a blessing in disguise in terms of Megan developing her game? Absolutely. You know, but man, she had that long layoff as well with everything she was dealing with, which we still don't know the full extent of everything that she said she's not going to comment on. But she had that long layoff, and then you know, she was originally supposed to have a title fight, and then, you know, big checks come along with title fights. You know what I mean? So I'm sure she would have appreciated that extra money in her bank account. And as you said, I mean, now she's a little further away. You know, it's not a match that anybody's clamoring for. So will she ever even get that fight? Who knows? You know, not a lot of depth in that division yet. So maybe it's easier for her to work her way back there. But yeah, it had to be a frustrating night for Anderson for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think so. I thought it was a great fight, though. I really enjoyed it. It was nice. Holly looked fantastic, and I have been a big fan of Holly's for a long time. It was really nice to see her after the tough time she's had going in there and doing well. Unfortunately, it's always at the expense of another fighter, so that is the nature of the sport and the brutality of it sometimes. Now, out with CM Punk, this is probably the most talked about guy in the card. Actually, maybe more so than CM Punk, Mr. Colby Covington fighting Rafael dos Anjos. What did you think of the fight, John? And did this fight go the way you thought it would?
You know, it's funny because you're dead right. You know, as a website operator, man, I see all the traffic for MMA Junkie, and the 2 guys that everybody says they didn't care about, CM Punk and Colby Covington, were the 2 guys that were generating the most traffic before the event, during the event, and after the event. So it's funny how that works. But yeah, listen, I've been a fan of Colby Covington from day one. When he made his UFC debut in Macau, I happened to be there, and there were only like 3 English-speaking fighters on the card. So even though he was making his debut, I interviewed him and talked to him and got to know him kind of early. And I like his game, man. He's got great wrestling, great scrambling ability, incredible cardio. He showed all that in this fight. Now, along the way, he's developed this, shtick, this character, and it is a character. Make no mistake about it. I mean, he is playing a role because that's not who he is. He's a super nice guy behind the scenes. He's just ruffling people's feathers. But you know what? It's getting him the attention that he probably wouldn't have. I mean, you got Kamaru Usman sitting there on the sidelines that's probably going like, what do I got to do to get my shot? Well, you got to get people's attention. So Colby's an interesting cat, but man, I was impressed by this fight. I really was. As big of a fan as I am of Colby, I thought that this might be a little bit too much for him. I thought Rafael dos Anjos, the striking that he has, especially, the wrestling, I thought he would struggle, that Colby would struggle to get takedowns, and he did struggle to get takedowns, but, he was able to neutralize the position and control the clinch quite a bit. The couple times they did strike, Colby got tagged a couple of times, but he quickly recovered and got through and got back to a dominant position. And, I mean, what can you say for a guy that can keep that kind of pace for 25 minutes? Incredible that he's literally sprinting forward at the start of each round and getting in the face. So I was impressed by Colby Covington all the way around. You could see the frustration on Dos Anjos' face when the final bell sounded. Everybody tries to put their hands in the air and maybe convince the judge, but you could just see it written all over his face that he'd basically been broken. Colby was tough. So very, very impressed by Colby. Whether that means he's going to have enough for Tyron, I don't know. Tyron's an animal as well. So but man, I can't wait for that fight. Both the build up to it and the fight itself will probably be pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say to any coaches that are showing young fighters the importance of cardio and using it as a weapon, that is the fight to watch. Because dos Anjos has looked like an absolute killer at welterweight, but he looked uncomfortable from the start of the fight to the finish of the fight, and that effectively is what one quote. It was just constant pressure. Dos Anjos just never get a minute to sit and put combos together, and yeah, you could see at the end the frustration. Sorry, do you want to come in there, Tom?
No, I think it was actually Joe Rogan said he compared Covington to Nick Diaz in the sense that it was just relentless. It wasn't big haymakers. It was just relentless pressure, using his cardio. I'll be honest, I've not seen a great deal of Covington, so I've heard a great deal from him, but I've not seen a great deal of his fights. So I didn't really know what to make of it. I thought RDA I thought that was his fight beforehand. So super impressive to put a guy away like that. But I also like the trash talk. I like all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's fighting. That's what we want to do. We want to try and sell fights. We want to try and. I love Conor. I loved Bisping when he was doing it. And I love Covington's not as good as those two guys. I think because he's a wee bit more forced and probably scripted. But the other guys are more natural. But I love it nonetheless. Want to take the belt to see Trump. That was brilliant. That was funny. And John's right. Tyron Woodley is now like a raging volcano. He's desperate. It's going to be great to see this fight, and the back and forth is going to be superb. But what's interesting, I don't want to jump too far ahead for you, James, here, but everybody spoke about how much of a landslide victory it was. It was straightforward for the judges. Dos Anjos actually landed more significant strikes. Covington landed more strikes. RDA landed more significant strikes, and Covington got a couple of more takedowns. Compare that to the main event, and the absolute opposite happened there, and the opposite person won.
Yeah, it's the thing with that is just a couple of things you've touched on there I'd like to come back to. Watching that fight, yep, RDA landed more significant fights, but RDA, he didn't look like a guy that won that fight at all.
No, his body language didn't suggest that.
And Covington controlled it, and the thing you were saying about the cardio, I heard Joe Rogan say that, comparing it to Nate Diaz cardio. The difference is Nate Diaz is going to sort of pepper away shots. Colby Covington was on him, threatening takedowns. That will drain you. That will drain you significantly. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
I'm just going purely on the stats.
Yeah,
if you just look at it afterwards as an analyst or a statistician, then the co-main event was won for the person that lost the main event.
Yes, I get that. Sometimes stats just, although they're fantastic to have and look at, they don't always tell the story, especially.
I'm not disputing the decision for a second. I'm just guessing how differently people see fights.
I totally, yeah, I get where you're going with it. And something else you said regards to the shit talking and stuff like that. I think we can all agree, for guys that are involved in the media and interviewing fighters, I like a fiery shit talk. It makes the interviews more interesting, keeps you on your toes. And let's be honest, more people watch it.
It provides guys like us with a line, because that's what we need. We need a line to throw out there at the top of your article or whatever else, and that's how you get people interested. That's how you get people clicking on articles, and that's how these guys start to get a bit of notoriety. So I wish more people did it. You do need a balance, but I wish more people had a bit of trash talk about them.
No, definitely. And I find myself as well, leading up to the fight, I was kind of disliking Covington, and I thought, damn it, he's got me. He's got me. He's done exactly what he set out to do. I'm super interested. Although as well, I'm sure John would agree with this. Would you feel Covington just seems to be getting a bit better every fight? He's improving as well, which is a massive thing. Do you feel that, John, from the Damian Maia moving forward now into the RDA fight?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, meeting him so early in his UFC career, I've been following his fight career closely, and I've definitely seen the step ups. Even the fight against Warley Alves, the loss, he basically popped a rib at some point during the fight, so he couldn't even move, which is always frustrated him. He's wanted that fight again because he feels he beat him every other time. The guy is relentless pressure. Again, his wrestling is fantastic. His defensive scrambling is fantastic when he gets in bad positions. His striking is getting better. It's not great. There's no question about it. I mean, that's the part that needs to be shorn up. But when he can keep that pressure on you for 25 minutes, man, it's just tough to deal with. When you never let a guy, as you guys said, never even get set to throw those combinations. I mean, it's impressive to see. So yeah, and the talk is fun, man. I get it. Some people, I mean, everybody says they don't like it, but everybody clicks on it. You know what I mean? So it is. I mean, it is a fight at the end of the day. And yes, I mean, we're all about sportsmanship. And yes, I mean, I love the respect that's between the athletes. But, dude, who wants to see people like hugging and bumping gloves in the middle of fights and stuff like that? No, like you could do it afterwards. Like no, not during the fight. It's a fight. So yeah, it's fun. It's going to make for some interesting build up for that fight. And now, I mean, look, Tyron's been sitting on the sidelines, kind of not really interested in that fight, not really interested in that fight. Now you got him on Twitter saying, "Get this fight booked now." So that's exciting.
And also, Covington done one thing that I liked. He stuck with the stick right after the fight. He didn't say it was all for show. He stuck with it. And like Tom said, the whole Trump line with the belt when in Chicago, it was just brilliant. It made me laugh. So I'm more of a fan of Covington than I was before. But like I said, the fact I was disliking him just means I've bought it. That's all it does. So moving on, just obviously the main event of the evening, quite a controversial one. How did you see the fight, John, between obviously Whittaker and Yoel?
I had it 3-2 for Robert Whittaker, and I I could have seen the draw. I could have seen a 10-8 round. You know what I mean? I thought the 3-2 was fair. It's just a matter of whether you thought there was a 10-8. I didn't think there was a 10-8 in there, so I had it 48-47. But had they announced a draw, I wouldn't have been upset. I totally would have understood that. Romero is such a unique individual, man. I mean, just the fact that he'll basically give away rounds at sometimes, to help kind of preserve some energy, and he'll just stand there kind of stoic and take what you throw at him. And then, if he lands one shot, I mean, it's devastating. I mean, it's nearly fight ending. Tough dude. Man, I gotta think that Robert Whittaker. I know that Joe Rogan got in there and asked about the rubber match, which I don't know how you have a rubber match at 2-0, but we'll let that go. But I gotta think that Robert Whittaker does not want a third fight with Yoel Romero, and is going to be happy to say, "Look, I beat him twice. I'm actually supposed to talk to him in a few minutes, so I'm looking forward to that. But I beat him twice. He missed weight this time. I'm done with him. Tell him to go somewhere else."
Yeah, I don't see Whittaker going back in there. I had the fight scored 3-2 Whittaker as well. I had Whittaker first, second, and fourth. I'm assuming, do you have the same?
Yeah, same way.
Yeah, and with the 10-8 system, see, this is an issue for me. The scoring system's chopping and changing. It makes things unclear. It just makes it more difficult. Not that we've got the best judges in MMA anyway, but to confuse them more with different scoring systems just makes it worse. I had someone say to me, but Whittaker didn't really do any damage. I'm like, you really need to watch the fight again and have a look at Yoel's eye. That eye was closing fast. Whittaker definitely done damage. But yeah, I enjoyed the fight. I could see why people would score it for Yoel with regards to the 10-8, but I went Whittaker 3-2. Tom, how was your scoring on the fight, and what did you think of the decision?
Exactly the same as you guys. I didn't see a 10-8 either. I would need to watch it back again. I was that lost in the excitement of that third round. It was absolutely epic. It was a great third round. It was up there with, in fact, it should have been a Diego Sanchez round. That's how good it was. It was brilliant, and I agreed with the decision. I agree with the scores. I don't think they should go to a third round. A third fight. He's beat him twice, and he did say afterwards that he actually hurt himself hitting him. Every time he landed a punch or a kick, he says the guy's made of steel. And it just goes to show, James, that when you get to 40, you're in the prime of your life. So just remember that,
So you're in your prime about 5 years ago?
I've been in my prime for only a couple of months.
No,
still look younger than you. I think what we need to remember here as well is that Whittaker broke his hand. Was it the third round as well? Was that the third round that happened? So he's fought on against an absolute determinator with a broken hand, and it was quite obvious he broke his hand as well. Didn't complain about it, didn't even tell his corner that I heard. So that just shows you how tough that guy is. And I remember him from back in the Ultimate Fighter.
Smashes.
Unbelievable how he's progressed. Absolutely phenomenal. And that, I'm sure he went up a division as well since the...
Yeah, he started off at welterweight. He done okay at welterweight. He was doing well, but as soon as he came into middleweight, that's his division. And the guy's just found his weight class. And I agree, he's fought with one leg in the first fight and one arm in the second fight because he was throwing that left a lot. But we've just got a couple of more things. Obviously, we won't keep you too much longer, John. I know you've obviously got other stuff to do. I just quickly wanted to get your thoughts on Dana obviously coming out and speaking regarding potentially John Jones and another WWE gentleman, Mr. Brock Lesnar, although it's not comparable to CM Punk. I think John Jones' court cases is a month or 2 months away, if I'm not mistaken. What do you think about that potential matchup, John? Does that kind of get you a bit excited? Or?
I mean, listen, it's bizarre. It's bizarre, but it's a matchup they had been talking about in the past. I mean, they were trying to put this together before, and it's one that will definitely get the public's attention. And listen, these are two guys that have had their problems with the law, we'll say, I guess, with USADA, and I mean, so at least you can just put them up against each other, and you can write all that stuff off or what have you. But I like it. I mean, I like the fight. It's a crazy fight. It's one that on paper doesn't make sense to me. Has Brock Lesnar done enough to fight John Jones, who, you can argue is the greatest fighter of all time? I personally have Demetrius Johnson as the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world, but only because John Jones has been inactive for so long that he hasn't been able to rack up those wins. I think, had he stayed in the game throughout these suspensions, he would be the clear number one. So has Brock done enough to earn that fight? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, people have to remember, I mean, yes, this is a sport, but this is a sport unlike any other. It's you don't announce a season at the beginning of the year and every team round robins. I mean, you've got to do what's going to get public attention, what's going to bring the most eyeballs. And to be honest with you, I can't think of another fight for John Jones that would bring more attention than a Brock Lesnar fight, and vice versa. I mean, this will be huge.
Yeah, I think so, and I definitely want to see it. I absolutely want to see it. I want to see John Jones at heavyweight, and it's just an extra treat to see him at heavyweight against Brock Lesnar. I don't think it would be his most difficult matchup at heavyweight by a long stretch, but I think it's a good fight for him to go into heavyweight first, and for it, in terms of attention, it will probably get more attention than a title fight against Stipe. No, not probably, it would, I would say. What do you think, Tom, of the fight? Would you quite like to see that one?
I would, of course. But there's one thing I was going to ask, is there not, and as much as there's such a wide range of in the heavyweight division, 206 to whatever, is there not a sort of 40-pound limit that you've got to be within? Like John Jones and Brock Lesnar must be within 40 pounds of each other.
Yeah, there are in certain commissions in the United States, there are, but I guarantee you they'll have that fight in Las Vegas, and bro, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, they will Hey, we'll look the other way. Well, they'll figure out a way to make that happen.
I don't think for a minute John Jones couldn't hit that scale at 226. He's had some time off. I'm sure he's been lifting some weights. I think John Jones is probably naturally going to have to go to heavyweight at some point. I think the weight difference between light heavyweight, heavyweight anyway is absolutely insane. But
in terms of skill sets, it's one end of the spectrum to the other. John Jones is legit. It's just whether Brock can bear hug him to death, just grab him and get him down on that floor and bear hug him to death. I think John Jones wins it, but it would be really good to see. It's
kind of that old thing, although John Jones is not a small man by any stretch of the imagination, it's that big, massive Goliath guy. Against, obviously, I know John Jones isn't a small guy, but maybe a 30-40 pound weight difference between both, that is a lot. That's probably one of the reasons we have weight divisions. But yeah, I think it's a fight that will excite the fans. It will definitely excite the media. So
it'll be interesting to see how John Jones looks when he comes back, because I thought he looked horrible against Owens, St. Peru.
John Jones is one of these guys, though. It just seems like the bigger the fight, the higher his level goes. I think he's just naturally a gifted human being. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. I was going to talk a wee bit about the Conor McGregor court guest, but there's not really anything to talk about. I think it's a case of 1 minute in and then...
Truly sorry, that's all we need to know. He's truly sorry.
Right, well, I think we'll call it a wrap on that, gentlemen. Thanks again for coming on, Tom.
No worries. It's nice to be on with somebody that knows what they're talking about for once.
Well, that is just hurtful.
Sorry, James.
And again, thanks very much for joining us, John. I really appreciate the time you've given us, mate.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, brother.
No problem.
Have a nice day, John. Cheers,
right,
James.
Right, thanks, guys. We'll speak to you later.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.